This is the little gadget for the PC-G850VS, and I've got a few cables here. This is a USB to serial, and because the code on the blue pill runs on the Arduino IDE, you can attach this to the serial monitor. The code currently it's set up to run at 2 megabits a second, so you can send data to the serial port while you're receiving. It's fast enough because this is only 9600. It's also for programming ST-Link V2. I don't use the USB to serial on here because you need a different bootloader, and you're mucking around with USB to serial port devices moving around every time you reset the card. Well, remove the cable. These things you just compile, load it, goes straight in, and it's really fast, and they're cheap, so I use those now. But the card itself, the gadget, if I start that up, the blue pill doesn't reset every time, but there's a button there so you can reset it. And if we turn this on, so if I load up a little test program, which just generates some data on the port, we'll select that file and we read it, 192 bytes. Actually, I probably need to set SIO mode first, and actually let's do it again. I'll clear the buffer. If you don't clear the buffer, it appends, and then read the data. Right, if we go to text mode, delete whatever's in there, SIO mode, load, and then if we send that file, 193 bytes over there. If we go back to the text editor, edit that, have a look and see what's in there. There's a demo, and all this does is just send the number 0 to 255 out of the PIO port. But what we can do now is we can go to basic. Well, actually no, we've got to go to text, basic, turn text into basic, like that. It's asking me if I want to delete the program that's already in there, and I do. Over to basic, we can run that. If we now go to PIO mode, and we set the PIO to all inputs, so now we're reading whatever's coming out of the port, otherwise we'd still be in SIO mode. You can scope it, so every time you run that you get a set of traces, and these are the 8 lines on the interface. So if I do that again, trigger it with this button and run the program, you can see that you've got counting in binary. Now the scope's not fast enough to pick up bit 0 because that's whizzing too fast, so you've got aliasing and it looks like it's slower, but the rest of it you can see are different frequencies. So we could go to program mode, go down here, there's a delay loop. If I just make that 10 times bigger and back into basic, run this, trigger and run, it's slowed down, and you can see now that we can now see bit 0. So that's quite nice for looking at PIO outputs. Actually there's a couple of little glitches there, I'm not sure what they are. Let's do that again. It's still running because it's so slow. I think we'll stop that, start it again, trigger and run, and there you go. So the most significant bit hasn't even toggled yet. In fact, the second most significant bit hasn't toggled. And the starting point there, if we do that, you can see it's still running. So it's actually still counting. So it's sort of useful for showing you the state of all the lines in one go as lines, and also any sort of slow activity. You could slow your program down, and that's it, finishing there. You could slow your program down to a state where you could actually read it. This is sampling and displaying at the same time. You could sample into a buffer and then display in one go, and that would be a bit faster, but you probably want some sort of trigger then, but you could do that as well. This is pretty fast. You could probably have a trigger there and have a little tiny scope for the lines, but that's just something I added for a problem I had when I was fiddling around with the interface and the gadget.